Welcome back, Careblazer. In today's video, I want to talk about some of the most common mistakes I see Careblazers make and what you can do to avoid them. By avoiding these mistakes, you're going to be less stressed, more calm, and you're going to have a better relationship with your loved one. And when all of those things are happening, it's much less likely that your loved one's going to have as many difficult dementia behaviors. That's one of the hardest parts about this disease. We can't just get our loved ones to change because we tell them to change or because we ask them to change. Their brains are not able to respond that way most of the time. We have to change first. We have to change our approach. When we change our approach to our loved ones with dementia, we start to see positive change. The challenge is there's hardly anybody talking about this. This is not information that's usually delivered in a short doctor's visit where all the healthcare providers are just focusing on the disease. So this is what I hope that this video can provide for you, is just to go over some of the common mistakes I see caregivers make, because the mistakes that I'm referring to are ways that we would regularly interact with people in our day-to-day lives, but it's backfiring to us when it comes to dealing with our loved ones with dementia. So I really do hope this video will help you. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's that when you start to care for somebody with dementia, it's almost like learning a new language. To be the most effective, we have to learn how to interact with that person in a way that's so different than the way we've been interacting with people our entire lives. Before I share these 4 mistakes with you, I want to let you know that today and tomorrow are the very last days of my free live care class on how you can reduce your caregiver stress using my Careblazer map system. So if you're watching this on the day it released, Sunday, August 9th, or even the next day, Sunday, August 10th, look below this video. There's a link you can sign up to attend my free class. It's live. I'll be answering your questions and I'll be sharing specific ways you can use my Careblazer map to reduce your caregiver stress. Also, if you're watching this before August 17th, it's not too late for you to join my private program where I work with you personally on helping make sure we can reduce your caregiver stress, and we go over weekly live question and answer sessions. It's a really great program. You can check it out at the link below this video. I want you to know that by avoiding these 4 mistakes, which I'm just about to share, it's not just your loved one that benefits from this. You get to benefit from this. You benefit from avoiding these 4 mistakes because it allows you to avoid unnecessary or excess stress and upset. The brain likes to think that when we start to make some of these changes, it's all for our loved one with dementia. It's all to somehow make their life easier at an expense to us. But that's not the case. Reducing how often you do these 4 behaviors is going to benefit your loved one with dementia, but it's also going to benefit you. Sometimes Careblazers will talk to me and they'll say things like, well, this means my loved one wins, or this means that it's just letting them get away with things. Those are not helpful ways to think about this, and as I go through the 4 common mistakes, you'll start to see why. So the first common mistake I see happen a lot is correcting. You do not have to correct your loved one every time they say or do something wrong. This is one of the quickest ways to add unnecessary strain on your relationship with your loved one. And the more that strain that's added on that relationship, the more difficult it's going to be in the future for you to be able to provide care that you want. Not to mention how much energy it would take from you to continue to correct all the things that they do wrong or all the things that they say that's incorrect. Let's say your loved one's talking to somebody and your loved one tells them that they went out to lunch earlier that day with you. And you didn't go out to lunch with your loved one. Maybe you went out to lunch with your loved one last week or yesterday, or maybe you haven't even gone out to lunch with them in a long time. These are situations where it might be easy or just a reflex for the Careblazer to say, oh, we didn't go out to lunch today, or that was last week, that wasn't today. But those little things start to wear away at the relationship. It is okay to just let that comment pass. We don't have to correct every single incorrect thing that they say. And if it is something by chance that is super important that you want to make sure that's actually maybe harmful or has some really negative consequences, if that incorrect information stayed out there, that's just the situation where you pull the other person to the side at some point, or you wait till your loved one's engaged in activity or is no longer around or is no longer listening, and you tell that person, hey, you know what, we actually didn't go out to lunch today. We actually went out to lunch last week. Right? So, or, if they're talking to a doctor and they're saying everything's fine, nothing's going on, you find your way when your loved one is not listening, or you find your way to slip the note to the doctor, or you find a way to do it in a respectful way where you're not constantly correcting. Actually, you're not doing fine. Actually, you're having a lot of trouble. Again, the correction is going to wear away at your relationship, which is just going to make it more likely that they're going to have difficult behaviors or more resistance towards you, more suspicion of you. And so we want to just avoid it at all costs if you can. Same thing with if your loved one does something incorrectly. For instance, they're putting together a puzzle and the pieces aren't put together the correct way, but they don't notice it and they continue to go about putting together the puzzle. There's no harm in that. Let them continue to put together the puzzle in the way that they're putting it together. If you're playing a game and they've got some other rules going on, it's okay to just go with the flow. It saves you energy. It saves the relationship. The general rule of thumb here is that if there is no imminent safety risk, don't correct it. Just let it go. It is not worth the risk to your relationship. It's not worth the added strain. It's not worth all the energy it takes. If there is no danger or risk, let it go, Careblazer. All right, so the second common mistake I often see is arguing. So if you're caring for somebody with dementia, chances are they're going to come up with beliefs and statements that are totally not true. And their brain is trying to make sense of things they can't remember, or make sense of things they just can't make sense of anymore. When you disagree with your loved one, it increases the chances of them becoming defensive, upset, suspicious of you, again, leading to more difficult dementia behaviors, which again is just going to add to your stress level. That's the opposite of what you want to happen. It's important to know that just because you don't disagree with them, you don't voice your disagreement, it doesn't mean that you agree with them. It just means that you're valuing the peace and the calm and the less stress and the relationship more than you're valuing whether or not what they're saying is especially correct. So rather than engaging in an argument about something that's untrue, you'll want to try to follow these 3 steps. Acknowledge what they said, respond in a calm, short way, and redirect them to something else. So here's an example. Let's say your loved one accuses you of stealing their money. It would be really easy for you to respond with something like, I'm not stealing your money. How many times do I have to tell you that? Remember we talked about where all your money is going? This type of approach not only, one, disagrees with what your loved one is saying, it reminds them that you've had this discussion before, something they probably don't remember, and it also asks them to remember a time when you reviewed the money, something, again, they probably don't remember. While this approach makes complete logical sense for somebody who has intact memory, for somebody whose memory is solid and their judgment is solid and their reasoning is solid, this approach doesn't work for somebody with dementia. It tends to lead to more stress and frustration. So instead, what you can do in this kind of situation where your loved one is accusing you of stealing their money, you can try, 1, acknowledging what they said, something like, you're worried I'm taking your money. 2, responding in a short, calm way, I'm going to make sure all your money is safe so you have all you need. And then 3, redirecting them to something else. And then you can redirect their attention in kind of a natural transition. So you can say something like, I remember I bought this coloring book last week so that we would have something to do together. Let's try coloring right now. Or you could say something like, I remember when we bought this coffee mug. I really liked the colors on it. Let's have a cup of coffee together. Or, you know what? Speaking of money, I went to the grocery store yesterday and I bought some fruit. Let's have some fruit. So you're just acknowledging what they say, you come up with a short, concise way to respond, and then you try to look for your opportunity for redirection. The exact way you respond, the exact statement you say, that'll change depending, from situation to situation. And at first it can be a little bit difficult trying to figure out, what do I say now? Because we want to get sucked into just providing very rational correction, letting them know that's actually I'm actually not stealing your money, this is what I'm doing with it. We get so pulled into wanting to communicate with them. Of course, the way we've been communicating with everybody our whole lives, it's kind of hard to break that pattern. But the more you experiment, the more you try, the more you come up with different ways to respond, the easier and more natural it will get for you. Another mistake number 3 I see a lot is reasoning. A lot of Careblazers want to try to reason with their loved one with dementia. When we attempt to reason with somebody with dementia, it can lead to extreme frustration on your part, and of course it makes it more likely that your loved one's going to show some difficult behaviors. Many times the brain with dementia is just simply not able to reason. And when you're trying to reason with somebody with dementia, it's as if you believe if you talked about something in a certain way, if you tried to explain it in a different way, if you tried to repeat yourself multiple times, it's like you believe somehow it's going to sink in and that your loved one's going to get it. But many times that never happens, and it's just this constant going head to head where both of you end up frustrated. I sometimes kind of compare this to trying to get somebody who's blind to see. It doesn't matter how much you describe what you're seeing. It doesn't matter how detailed you are. It doesn't matter if you're the most wonderful, if you use your words in the most wonderful way, the blind person is still not going to be able to see whatever it is, no matter what. You can just say, open your eyes wider. You should be able to see just like I can see. It doesn't make logical sense. The same is true for somebody with dementia. We're trying to get them to understand something, to be able to have the reasoning ability that they no longer have. No matter how many times you try to get them to have the reasoning ability, and no matter how many different ways you try to make them understand. So if we just use one of the examples I used earlier about your loved one accusing you of stealing their money, trying to reason with them would sound something like, I need access to your bank account to pay the bills. Here are your bills. See, here's what I paid. It costs money to live here, pay for the phone, the electricity, the internet, and food. I have to take money out to pay for these things. Or any variety of these statements. Now, you can always use and attempt a simple rational response first. Like you can simply just try and say, I use the money to pay the bills. And if they accept that and they don't push back, great, you're golden, you can move on. But if they continue to press or they continue to question, or your loved one pushes back in any way, that's a sign that their brain is not fully able to comprehend and understand the situation. So continuing to go down the path of reasoning is not going to work. The goal when you find yourself trying to reason with your loved one with dementia, the goal that you should have is actually, how can you help your loved one feel calm and reassured about whatever it is that they're questioning, right? That's the goal, calm reassurance. So remember, whenever you're trying to come up with responses that calm or reassure your loved one, you have to come up with sentences that make sense in their world, not necessarily in your world. They're unable to grasp the situation as you and I can grasp the situation. That means you're not going to be able to explain the situation to them in the same way that you would explain the situation to me. We have to come up with different ways to engage. And those ways that we engage with them might not make a lot of sense in our world, but that's okay. All we need to focus on is what would make sense in their brain right now. What would make sense in their world right now? What could I say to calm and reassure them, even though that response would not work if you were talking to somebody else without dementia? This leads me to the fourth and final common mistake I often see, and that is testing. A lot of times, Careblazers want to test their loved one's memory. What this looks like are asking questions like, do you remember who this is? Do you remember what we talked about yesterday? What did you have for breakfast today? Do you know what today's date is? They seem like simple, innocent questions, but for somebody with dementia who's having problems with their memory, it can be embarrassing. It can lead them to feel defensive. It could lead them to not want to engage and interact with you as much because it tends to call out answers they don't know. Or if somebody with dementia is completely unaware of their deficits and how much impairment they have, some people with dementia can just make up something that's not true at all. And in those cases, then you're likely to fall into the common mistake of correcting them. Well, no, actually it's Saturday, it's not Tuesday, right? So for the most part, we don't want to test our loved one's memory. We want to just offer them the information so it can help put them at ease and help build their confidence and help maintain a good relationship between you and your loved one. So I would encourage you to just skip the testing piece and give them the information right away. So for example, if your son is going to come visit you and your husband who has dementia, and your son comes over, you could easily say, look, honey, it's Jim, our son. He hasn't been here in a while. It's so nice that he visited. In that nice, simple, natural way, you didn't ask him, do you remember who this is? You didn't leave it to the son to say, do you remember who I am? You just immediately took care of any uncertainty or anxiety that your loved one may experience by trying to figure out, who is this person? Am I supposed to know this person? I feel really bad, right? So you just take care of it for them. If you want them to know what day it is, you can just simply say, today's Monday, August 31st. I can't believe the summer's almost over, right? You just give them the information. A lot of Careblazers want to test their loved one's memory because they want to see where they're at and how they're doing. I promise, and I'm sure you can attest to this, there's no shortage of opportunities you're going to come across that's going to reveal to you how your loved one's doing cognitively. We don't need to add extra challenges and extra tests to be able to figure that out. Just them going through their days, you're going to start to see some of that happen. So just find simple and natural ways to give your loved one information that they might not know and that you want them to have. This not only helps your relationship, but it helps keep their dignity. All right, Careblazers, so a quick recap on the 4 common mistakes. We want to try to avoid arguing, correcting, reasoning, and testing. Careblazer, the practice of avoiding these mistakes takes time. It especially takes time because these are common things we would do probably without much thought to the majority of people we interact with, and it doesn't have, many times it doesn't have the negative detriment effects that it would have with your loved one with dementia. So you truly are learning an entire new way to interact, and it takes some time. So be kind to yourself. We are not looking for perfection. That is not attainable. We're just looking for some progress. If you could just reduce one of these mistakes that you're making, just reduce how often it happens, you're going to start to see some benefits for yourself, for your loved one, for your relationship with your loved one, and it's going to get easier and easier and more natural for you to reduce them even further. Careblazer, I really do hope this video has been helpful to you. Feel free to leave a comment below if you have another common mistake you'd like to add to this list, and I sure do hope to see some of you later today in just a few hours or even tomorrow for my last free live care class where I'll be sharing how you can reduce your caregiver stress using my Careblazer map system. And for some of you, I look forward to really getting to know you and helping you in my private program. All right, Careblazer, I'll be back with another video next Sunday.